Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's KeyNotes. We're excited to have you here. I'm Taylor Nelson, Digital Specialist here at Key Media Solutions.
And I'm Madison. I am the digital coordinator, which is kind of a vague term, but I do a little bit of everything. But especially for this conversation, I do a lot of our graphic design for both social or organic social and our paid ads.
Before we jump in, we're just going to give it a little bit of time here to let everyone join the live. So, I don't know. Madison, how's the weather there in Minneapolis?
Terrible. I'm so sad. It was so beautiful this weekend, and it's just been like downhill, just slowly getting a little worse. But
Yeah.
I think this is like I'm hoping that this is like the worst part before it gets better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How about in Sioux Falls? I'm in Minneapolis, by the way, for anyone.
It's the same here. Super windy. Luckily, no snow. I know there's definitely been some areas that have been hit with snow, so I'm glad it didn't snow here.
Oh no. I know that we were rumored to have snow this week, but
Mhm.
luckily it's been like above 35 pretty consistently. So I'm just hopeful for spring.
Mhm.
Mostly summer, but the indication of, of summer via spring.
For sure. I feel like we keep getting teased with spring and then we keep getting thrown back into winter. So,
Such as the Midwest, unfortunately.
for sure. All right. Well, do you want to jump right in?
Let's do it. I feel like maybe we should start with why this is a topic that is important to us. Campaign creative. We see it, we do it all day. We're excited to talk about it. And there's some very key steps, I think, in the process of designing and implementing campaign creative.
For sure. So, for starters, we recommend swapping out your creative quarterly. That's not always necessarily true though either. If you're having like a record campaign, like record campaign numbers, you don't necessarily need to swap out your creative. And also, it's not always, the perfect situation for you to swap out your creative quarterly either. But the data does show that once your viewers start to see those ads, your metrics do start to decline. The ads start to fatigue, and over time, your cost per click increases, your cost per conversion increases, and getting that new, fresh creative does help with that. Helps with the engagement rate, helps with your click-through rate, all of that.
And just for context, so everyone knows, we're mostly going to talk about today display creative, which comes in like programmatic campaigns, a lot of meta campaigns, what sometimes PMax or like Google Performance Max campaigns. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's a lot of other ways that campaign creative can be relevant. It is important to keep your social media, creative, fresh and relevant, but we're mostly talking about display that can kind of run for a while. And we often see, as Taylor said, a downturn in clicks and click-through rate after. Yeah, I think quarterly is a good framework. You'll see a lot of different numbers out there as far as recommendations, but I think quarterly is a really good benchmark or standard to try and keep your creative fresh, because almost every time we start to see a little bit of a downturn in clicks or click-through rate, it's usually because that creative is starting, people are starting to get a little bit of ad fatigue in seeing that creative.
For sure. And you have to keep in mind, like, once you implement that new creative, it's not necessarily going to make that change right away. It's going to go back into that learning phase where your ads have to learn again, and then your engagement rate and your click-through rate and your impressions and your clicks will start to rise again after that. It's not going to be that immediate change either. It's definitely going to go back into that learning phase and take a couple of weeks for that to get implemented.
That's a really good point. I just actually saw that with one of our clients recently. We got a whole new set of creative, new targeting that came from what that creative message was. And I got really worried at first because none of the clicks weren't going back up. And I was like, wait, no, the creative's new. But it was because we started targeting a new audience from that message. And because of that, you do have to, go through that learning phase where it's going to serve, they're all going to serve a few impressions. People are going to start being more aware of your brand. But once people are a little bit more familiar, then those clicks and that click-through rate start to go up again. So it's kind of a balance. It's a little bit of a balancing act of like, you don't want to end your creative too soon and not let people get familiar with your brand. And if you're doing it too frequently, the message can get a little confused, or people, your awareness and knowledge of your brand might be a little bit, might falter. But if you let it run too long, people might be tired of seeing them. So it's got a little bit of a balancing act. And I think quarterly is a good standard, as we said.
For sure.
Something else that I think is on that topic is important is using creative to target. Like if you, for example, if you have two different audiences you want to target, maybe one is just speaking generally, young adults, and then you also have older adults as two different audiences. I think something that can be missed sometimes also is keeping that creative specific to those audiences. And not forgetting that you can switch up the creative a little bit between your different art, whether it's an ad set and meta or an ad group and your programmatic campaign, really keeping that creative like specific to your audience that you want to target.
For sure. I think it's very important to test different, creatives for different audiences. And, then look at those results and see for sure which ones perform better, and then adjust as the time goes on to better suit your campaigns too.
Yeah, that's something that I think we've been playing around with a little bit, is using different creative for retargeting messages too. If you're running a new or a different campaign to retarget people that have already visited your site or have already clicked on your ads, trying out new creative so that those people aren't seeing the same ad twice. That can sometimes lead to a little bit more ad fatigue as well. So that's another way you can implement some fresh creative. And on that note as well, tracking creative, if you want to be really precise in the way that you're tracking, making sure that whatever naming convention you give that creative and whatever UTM parameter or final URL that you're using for that creative is also reflecting the specific parts of that creative. So whether it's a specific message or a specific ad group, including that in the UTM or the, I'm trying to think of a general way to describe a UTM. I guess it's just the final link that people are clicking on. Making sure that reflects the specifics of your creative can help make sure that you're accurately targeting that as well.
Or some people also might call it like a referral code. That's another way. I know that's how I knew it previously before working here, was a referral code. Then you can definitely like hone down as to seeing what works better, what was the more popular ad, what creative works better in your campaigns. And then you can, use that going forward to making your new ads and your new creative.
Yeah, I think it can be easy sometimes to just throw whatever creative you have across all ad groups and let it run. But that is kind of that next level, is tracking that accurately and seeing which creative is the most successful across your different audiences.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So Madison, I have to ask, since you're the one who kind of makes the creative here for us at Key Media, what size would you recommend running in your campaigns?
So it can be a little bit different depending on what platform you're on. And I do have a link. I'm going to share that as we're chatting. We have a link that has sort of just like creative standards that we use across our different campaigns. But I think you want your creative to be really specific to the platform you're running on. And so a general sort of rule of thumb, if you're running Meta, the most versatile is just a square ad, 1:1 aspect ratio. Display ads, you really do want to make sure you're specifically using ad formats that are accessible wherever you're running your ads. For example, there's a certain size, and I'm not going to, off the top of my head, I feel like I know what it is, but I always get confused between 320 by 50 and yeah. Anyways, I'm just going to send the link and so everyone has it. But there's certain sizes for mobile ads, and then there's certain sizes for web ads, and you want to make sure you're really including at least one across all. And we've been every once in a while we will also run tablet specific sizes, which tend to get a lot less impressions and clicks, but it does still allow you to target anybody that is using a tablet. So just really knowing where you want your ads to run and correlating that with the ad formats that you're using. Hopefully everybody got that link here. But if you want to check out our creative spec sheet, that has a really detailed list on specific sizes that we use. And I think just as a general rule of thumb, if you want to, making sure you have at least one of each, like one display or web design, and then one mobile design as well. And if you want to include a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's kind of that's my go-to, is just to make sure I have a good mix of all different ad placements.
For sure. Do you recommend running video ads?
Oh my God, I totally forgot about video. That was the whole point I really wanted to make. But for video is really, really big right now. And I think that's something that you don't think about, or I honestly didn't think about for a long time. And Google is telling me over and over again, like, let's get some video ads. Let's get some video ads. But video, no matter what platform you're running on right now, is pretty important to include, especially vertical videos. Instagram wants it, Facebook wants it, Google wants it. They really do want vertical videos. I think one of each, a nice long horizontal and then short form vertical video, is really good to include in every campaign you run. I don't want to misquote this, but shorter videos, around 6 to 10 seconds, are really good for awareness campaigns. If you want people to engage with your brand a little longer and lead more towards conversion, 30 to 60 seconds is sort of the go-to for video.
I do see we have a question from Carrie. She asked, for Meta, do you think video and display ads are valuable, or is one greater than the other?
I definitely think a combination of both is the best way to go. Video ads can be hard to get sometimes. I know, just because of capacity and creative ability, but even just like a 6-second video of one of your products or a short testimonial from a client, whatever you're able to get in that like 6-second to 60-second time frame, I think is important to include with your display ads.
And I will also say, if you are only running a video ad on Meta, the frequency of that ad will shoot up. So the people, seeing your ads will see it more frequent, and that ad fatigue will set in a lot faster. So running a display ad and a video ad, like in tandem, your campaign does a lot better than just running that video ad itself, due to that ad fatigue. Like, people will see that ad so much more frequently if it's just that video ad, and just their eyes will go like stagnant to it because they've seen it so many times. They won't even like really recognize it anymore after seeing it so many times. They'll just kind of go blind to it.
I think that's a good point too, in making sure you're controlling your frequency. If maybe you aren't able to get new creative every quarter, or you can tell that it's starting to, like, people are starting to get ad fatigue a little bit, you can control your frequency and make sure that people are maybe seeing them a little bit less, just to make sure that you're delivering a quality experience to whoever's seeing your ads.
For sure. That's a very good point. Does anyone else have a question for us?
I'm just going to review and make sure I mentioned everything. Oh, one point I want to make as well before we get off, I think something that is really important to do as well is audit your creative. If you've had 4 or 5, say you did the last year, every quarter you have 4 sets of creative, take that opportunity to look back and see what messages worked well. Is there a certain design or certain color that people seem more engaged with? We've found some really good insights by doing that and seeing exactly what people want to see and hear.
For sure. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we are going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us this week. Someone will be back next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So